What's up? Hello. Welcome back to our um welcome back to the streams. Good to see you all here. Rizzlers. It's so funny how things become memes. What's up, gang? Let's go. Let's go. For all of you who are here, for all the cohort members here, a special warm welcome. This is our 7 p.m. TGIF Friday slot. For everybody else who's wondering, what is that exactly? TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Why? Because you've got a session with the entire 10K designers community every single Friday. This is something we started during cohort 7. And the whole idea was cohort once, community forever. That's one of our core values that we've been living by right from the first cohort. But we weren't fully delivering on that promise, is what we realized. So, for the last maybe now close to 14 to 16 weeks, we've been doing a Friday session every single Friday, 7 p.m. We started this during the cohort. So, during cohort 7, the sessions were all around show and tell sessions. These were literally show and tell real projects by real mentors who work at real companies. A lot of them sharing their behind the scenes Figma, their entire process work, how exactly that happened. The kind of stuff that you will obviously never find on YouTube. You will never find it on Google either. You will probably find it if you work in a company that has a lot of designers that have past experiences. Then they will show you all this stuff. But anyway, that's TGIF. And now that we're done with the cohort quarter, this quarter, Q4, this is our content quarter, which means streams are back, of course. But every Friday, we're going to have private sessions for the 10K designers community members. And when I say community members, let's be specific. It's if you've been part of any of our cohorts in the past, if you've been a mentor at one of our cohorts in the past, if you've been a guest, you've done guest sessions for us, you're of course invited to. This one though is a bit of a break, so I thought let's do this public. So this is our public TGIF. What's up, folks? Nice to see so many familiar faces. Nice. Awesome. So folks, you know what we're here for today, right? It's in the it's in the title. It's in the title. Wednesday sessions. Yeah. So we've not yet confirmed what our regular streaming slot will be, right? Given that this is the content quarter, no cohort happening. Although application for waitlist for cohort 8, it's open. Link in the description. We've not yet confirmed what our public YouTube weekly streaming slot is going to be. Today is just a stand in. I am the substitute teacher for TGIF in this particular week. But keep an eye out, folks. Very interesting quarter. We're learning Rizz today. Absolutely, we are. And we're going to go deep into some Rizzonomics. All right. As usual, just like any designer would, I have a fig jam prepared for all of you. Given that we're in the early stages of this project, what do I mean by that? Any project starts with a lot more divergence, right? We're trying to figure out what exactly is this thing before we commit to any specific thing. So this particular project, given that it's in the early stages, currently is on FigJam. So what I'm going to be doing, if you're all ready, I'm going to be sharing a FigJam link in the chat right now. I want you all to just open it, check it out. I think it'll be cool for stream to see all the cursors, the usual. And given that it's stream, I definitely want to do that. The whole point of doing this as a stream rather than just a pre-recorded video is so that it's interactive. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, but before that, I'm just going to make sure I don't accidentally leak any information. hold on. I'm gonna close some of these windows. All right. I think we can do it now. Here we go. Okay. Let's make this smaller for today. Well, you know what? Let's keep it. Let me adjust. Let's adjust this. So, folks, what I'm going to do right now, if you're all ready, I want to hear that in the chat though. Before we do that, if you're all ready, I want to share the link with all of you so that you can jump into FigJam. Um, Rizzonomics, Rizzology, the UX of Rizz. The jokes keep writing themselves. But here's the link, okay? About to post it in the chat. Mm, Okay, let me get this again. Yeah, of course you guys will have access to the FigJam file. There you go. Link. I'm gonna pin this link as well. Let's go. Let's pin this message. We're gonna start. Oh, there we go. Boom. I'm gonna walk you through some of these basic ideas as we're developing them. And overall, this is the Internet Risk Manifesto. WIP though, work in progress. Um, as I'm seeing all of you enter, this is very exciting, very nostalgic because this is usually what we do in the cohorts. However, I'm also a little concerned. I don't want my FigJam to crash. Okay. So, folks, what is Rizz? What is Internet Rizz? Let's get serious here. As serious as we can for a topic like this. But let's get into this, okay? Overall, I don't have to explain to anyone here that having a presence on the internet is something that's super important. We're in alignment when I say that. Let's make this a little bigger. We're in alignment when I say that. Okay. However, I realized, okay, that even though I caught on to this concept of public brand, not public brand, but let's call it personal brand, even though I caught on to this concept very early in my career, I did not really make the full use of it. Spotlight on Kshitij Mirabu? Kshitij? No, bro. Hacker. I realized that I did not really fully make use of it. You know, thinking back now, it does. Okay. Now that you guys have this link, I think I can switch back. Okay, you guys have the FigJam link. Anybody new who joins who asks where's the FigJam, let them know. It's in the pinned comment. Okay, let's jump into this. Now, I remember very distinctly sitting in Manipal, computer science, in the hostel, and just thinking there's so many people around me, but there are no efficient ways of meeting them, right? In fact, even further, right? This was when I was about to go to Manipal a few months before that. You know, we made these Facebook groups, oh, incoming batch of XYZ, as a way to meet people in advance. But what I just realized was visibility in the real world is not equal to visibility IRL. Now, of course, now I'm saying it. I've had time to think about it, post rationalize all this. Back then, not thinking about this kind of stuff, right? Just in college. But I realized that visibility is not the same. IRL as well as on the internet. And as I started getting more into design, I realized that I have to get my own projects. Like I realized in some ways, since we started with t-shirt design, I realized that t-shirts, back then the trend was these kinds of these kind of huge graphic t-shirts that say my other t-shirt has beer on it, or like Bewakoof, that kind of vibe back then. And t-shirts were used as this way to make statements, right? So in some ways, if you're in a crowd, your t-shirt is what you use to stand out. Your t-shirt is what gives you visibility, right? So me getting into design, the whole idea was, okay, it's I need to use the skill to make t-shirts, right? That was my very simple thing getting in. Of course, it didn't stay the same because t-shirts quickly became posters, which is, if you're doing fests, like, yeah, we got to stand out, not just stand out as in, oh, this event versus that event, this college club versus this college club, but also stand out from the perspective of there are going to be hundreds of people taking photos at every fest. So these graphics and banners and branding that you design for fests is super important, right? So that was my initial frame getting into design. Now, real quick, I'm going to take a small pause here because remembered I just forgot to share this on Twitter. Let me just do that. Let me quickly share this on Twitter. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. So, what happened? The story, right? Nice to see a lot of Manipal folks. What's up, Hamdan? And Hamdan meet Aditya, who's currently in Manipal. Hari pathe aankhein lal. So coming back to the story at hand, design, t-shirts, posters, it was very, let's stand out, let's, how do you use it to get visibility? And the core thing that I was kind of realizing was visibility offline is not the same as visibility online, which is offline you can wear a graphic tee, a big graphic tee that affiliates, or let's just say displays your affiliation, right? If I wear a Manipal t-shirt, what does it say about me? I probably went to Manipal. If I wear a t-shirt which says, my other t-shirt has beer on it, or I don't know why I can't think of a good example. It just signals, oh, bro, I like to get drunk. I like to have fun. Similarly, you got these graphic T-shirts that say movie posters and typically memes, like just catchphrases and stuff. It signals that you are somebody who's into that kind of stuff. Usually, T-shirts are also a great conversation starter, right? In fact, anything you wear on your body, right? Anything that's fashion, something that people see when they meet you, usually a conversation starter. Um, Coming online, however, right? That's when things change because in the real world, the default is you have a body. The default is you've been presenting yourself throughout school, college. Online, however, you do not have a body by default. Visibility on the internet is something you have to create. Now, by default, most of us, especially Indian school system, we're not really incentivized to stand out. We're not incentivized because who stands out in a school, college, or let's say in a classroom? You're either on one end of the extreme, which is you are the topper, and so you don't really care about what other people think. You're focused on your goal, or you're totally on the other side where the thing you want to create is not results top or whatever. You want to create disruption or something like that. Right? And most of us kind of fall in the middle. And Indian classrooms are not very participatory. They're kind of more like, oh, do what you're told types. So, in general, standing out, not something that comes naturally to most of us, unless you're one of these extremes. To the median, however, standing out not normal. On the internet, it gets even more trickier because now there are no rules as such. The current meta of what is normal, what is cringe, like cringe and based, these are moving goalposts. So the advice that you probably get is, yeah, you should be professional on LinkedIn. You should watch what you say on Twitter. You should ज़्यादा ये मत पोस्ट करना, ज़्यादा ये बता मत देना, right? There's no real guide to how do you have visibility on the internet. What's the point of having visibility? We're going to talk about some of those things. And I think now might be a good time to jump into our fig jam. It all starts here. Okay. In the early days of social, and when I say early days, I'm thinking about when I was starting out in design, and I'm thinking about this. The early days of social, what mattered is that you were consistent, right? So things like, companies posting on Diwali, like, hey, happy birthday, not happy birthday, happy Diwali, happy occasion 2, happy occasion 3. Um, because back then, brands did not really have any precedent set on how do you be on the internet. Today, when you look at a brand like Zomato, it's a lot more personal, right? In some ways, the slight paradox here is brands are trying to be like people online and people are trying to be like brands. But what's that middle ground here? Now, it's not enough anymore to just post stuff. You gotta have Rizz. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about charisma. I'm not talking about IRL charisma though. IRL Rizz, it's a different thing. You guys know what I'm talking about. But internet Rizz is an underappreciated area of research that hopefully our academic institution, 10K Designers, is about to conduct a very, let's just say, a very, very deep research into starting this week. It all started with this. This was the first kind of tweet around it. This happened just last week. Oops, not this. And my favorite part about stuff like this is it's all participatory, right? It's not a top, like, unlike something like academic research, which is in academic circles and you kind of have this schedule and you publish it really late. This kind of research that we are doing, right, trying to develop new ideas, new stories, and new narratives, it's very participatory in nature, right? In fact, that's how it should be. Going back to just the idea of interaction design. But let's open up a few of these. You know what? You guys can check that out on your own. The participatory nature of this area of research led me to also post this on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is something that I am actually getting a lot more active in these days, mostly because I realized it was my bias that is actually stopping me from posting on LinkedIn. My bias was that, bro, LinkedIn is cringe. LinkedIn is for corporate culture. Twitter is where young people hang out. LinkedIn is where uncles post chai wali stories and all this stuff. Big bias though, right? And I totally admit that. LinkedIn, for most of India, let's say, maybe not all of you guys here, but for most of India, is that gateway into the corporate world, which means, and Twitter is not like that for most of us. For us, it is a little bit because we know using Twitter to directly network with these people, with people in startups, people in tech, people in products, people globally. We know, right? We've already got internet Rizz when it comes to Twitter. But when it comes to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is the corporate. And when I say corporate, I'm not talking about the culture, but just corporations. LinkedIn is that professional network. And so it took me a while to realize that. Um, but anyways, seeing some good developments. Of course, I don't want to create some kind of top down thing and just say, oh, this is what it is. This is an area of research, and this just started this week. So we're going to be experimenting a little bit more, and I'm going to switch back to chat in just a couple minutes. Some participatory explorations as well. Um, Interacted a bit with Andrew McLuhan. Now, Andrew McLuhan runs the McLuhan Institute. This is in Canada. I actually enrolled in a cohort based course a couple of weeks back, led by Andrew McLuhan. It was called Understanding Media. Real quick, let me show you a good example. Cohort based course called Understanding Media. This was led by Andrew. This is the book. This is the book by Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan, for those of you who know nothing about it, mm, writer, philosopher, popularized the term medium is the message. But very interestingly, Andrew runs the McLuhan Institute, which is they've got an archive of a lot of McLuhan's work. Andrew is also the grandson of Marshall McLuhan. So very nice to see that riff. And about the cohort based course, I'll talk about those kind of learnings later. But in general, um, what I did learn from it that was directly relevant and got me to do this was each generation does have its own defaults when it comes to sensory experiences. So a tweet around this that I very recently made, actually I should add this to FigJam. Let's do it. Let's add this here. For the radio generation, okay. For the radio generation, TV was sensory overload. For the TV generation, the internet was a digital fire hose. For the internet generation, TikTok was a dopamine buffet. For the TikTok generation, the next frontier awaits. How do you like my poetry, guys? Let me just post a link to this. It's right here. The interesting idea kind of packed into that is that sensory experiences differ by generations. And so it is the shifting window of what is accepted, what is normal. And as somebody who is a designer on the internet, a lot of our one of the reasons people pay us so much money is because we are able to spot patterns, right? Pattern matching and just detection of patterns is a very important skill as a designer. But very specifically, patterns of what? There's app patterns, UI, UX, all of that stuff. I'm talking more about behavioral patterns. So, in the same way that visibility IRL versus visibility on the internet are totally separate things, behavior, like human behavior IRL and human behavior on the internet is very different. Human behavior IRL is in a lot of ways shaped by relationships as well as spaces, right? Spaces set the context for how we meet people. Just to go very, very simple, right? Not going too deep into that. On the internet, online behavior is dictated by online spaces as well as relationships in those spaces. So, where was I going with this? What that implies is in the same way that I have just like that changed my entire bias and perception towards LinkedIn being the boomer platform. You know, it was difficult for me because growing up, LinkedIn was the most uncool thing, right? Today, LinkedIn, of course, owned by Microsoft. Back then, LinkedIn was the standard company. LinkedIn has always had slightly clunky design. Let's just say 10 years of programming, LinkedIn as the uncool place, just like that, deprogrammed, right? As designers, coming back to my point, one of the reasons we're paid so highly is because we design these spaces, and these spaces influence behavior for a huge set of people. However, to design these spaces, we need to have a good understanding of behavioral patterns and how these behavioral patterns change based on these spaces. The best way to do that, there's this concept in design called dog fooding. I don't really use that term. I think it's a bit cringe. But dog fooding, like eating your own dog food, sick. It's basically the idea of you have to put yourself in the perspective or yourself in the shoes of the user, right? You have to use your own products. You have to go through your own sign up and onboarding flow as if you are the user, as if you are somebody with limited context. You know, on a bad 2G connection, on an Android phone which with cracks in it, you're in the sun. Like you have to put yourself in those kinds of position to really understand how people on the other side are perceiving it. What that also implies, though, this kind of dog fooding, is that you are your, let's just say, blank prototype. Any ideas you have, any experiments you want to run, it probably first starts with you. And so, you know, I talked about a lot of stuff, said a lot of context. But in general, the idea is I want you all to check out this Fig Jam for sure. Drop some comments if there's interesting things you find. Those of you who drop very interesting comments with very interesting resources, I would be happy to give you edit access. I just don't want to do that right now because I don't want my file to be overrun. But let's do some comments. Let's do some comments. I want to have the participatory part of this. Let's talk a little bit more about it. I know we're getting into this abstract territory, but that's what's fun, right? Because in these abstract territories, defining what is the loose thing, what is the evergreen thing, I think that's super interesting. Okay. Oh, poetic Rizz. Guys, you know what? Like, I just realized there's no excuse to not write poems anymore. Like, I was just like, why should I? What's the point? There's no excuse to not write poetry anymore. Um, you guys probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's God. Developing. Okay, folks. So tell me more. Tell me more about some questions you have. Some, based on this Fig Jam, anything that comes to mind. What we are trying to do, our research objectives with this particular project, is we are trying to redefine what does personal brand mean for today. Personal brand in the last decade was a totally different thing. In the same way that the platforms have changed, the tools have changed, entire behaviors have changed. It's just that most people, to some extent, all of us included, have not fully seen what these effects will be. To give an example, ChatGPT is less than a year old, right? I think maybe it's like 7 or 8 months right now. However, have the effects of ChatGPT on as a technology on civilization, is this it? No, no. We're in that process right now. What effect does technology have on individuals and then communities and then civilizations? It's a it's an updating thing. And, honestly, being able to figure that out early, even if it's not in fully concrete terms, being able to figure that out early is your alpha, right? That's your alpha. So, what we're trying to do, our research objectives, we're trying to redefine what does it mean to have a personal brand. A really good, let's see, let's see this here. A really good article I read about this, like I think about 3 years ago, was this idea by Eric Torenberg where he said build personal moats, right? So when I first heard about this, the idea of a personal moat, like to me that was personal brand 2.0, right? I was like, this makes so much sense, right? Very nice article. You should definitely check this out. In fact, I was so influenced by it, I bought personalmoats.com, the domain, but didn't end up doing anything with it. Very interesting one, because the reason I include these two articles here is personal moats talks a little bit about the, looking at this as, let's put it this way, looking at the game, right? The game, we're in this brutalist vice city. When we talk about the game, one of the things that's important is the character. In this case, of course, you can learn from other characters. I'm a character in your little screen, but the only character you can play is yourself, right? So, personal modes to me is a very nice article about how do you think about that. Now, the metaphor of a moat, personally thinking at it now, I'm not really digging it anymore because I think moats implies defense, and I don't think personal brand is about being on the defensive, right? I think defending and like kind of being right on the internet, like, oh, as a company we can only say this and that. I think that was last decade stuff. This is about character. This is about what's your character in the game that you play. Old article, 3 years, but very solid reference. This is about the game itself, right? This does touch a little bit about the characters part, but this is more about the game itself, the great online game. To give a really quick, I know I've done multiple videos on this, streams on this as well, the great online game. But to give a very quick summary for anybody who does not know this, a very quick summary. Guys, I don't I don't know if you've noticed, but the world we live in post COVID is nothing like the world we lived in pre COVID. I'm sure you can intuitively feel that, but think about that. What has changed, among other things, is this realization that the real world, while super important, is subject to the online world and vice versa. The relationship between these two maps of this game that we play is not so obvious. And with this great online game that we play, it's like a video game because we might never meet each other. All of us in the chat, we might never meet each other in real life. I mean, a lot of you here are 10K designers, so you probably will in a meetup or in our annual party. But we're characters, right? This is a video game that we're playing, right? Video game, it's not video, but it's an interactive game that we're playing. Make the right connections, do the right tasks, pursue missions that improve your skill levels, and this can have very real world consequences, which is the money you make, the kinds of people you get to talk to, interact with, and collaborate with on an everyday basis. So, Post COVID, since most of you did have, in fact, all of us did have this kind of paradigm breaking experience where we clearly realized the world was not the same. Will it ever be the same? But now, post COVID, we know it almost feels like 2019 was 5 to 10 years ago. Now that we know that this is a game, by the way, I don't mean it means it's lesser than, right? A game does not really imply that it's unserious. This is the most serious thing ever. This is the most serious thing ever. Your performance, your relationship, your missions in the game, the online game, directly affect your experience in the real world. And so, can we just agree that we got to play and we got to get good at it? And that it's not the scary thing that past generations have told us: get in line, conform, follow the rules, and baad ka baad mein dekha jayega. Can we just understand it's not like that anymore? Can we understand that this game, in a lot of ways, has been designed by us, right? Us as the generation who is now taking over the job market. And in some ways, we have already given ourselves a competitive advantage because we've designed this game to be in spaces that we are comfortable in: streams, Discord, cohort based courses, communities, DAOs, NFT memberships. It's just the start. A good skill as you figure out how to get better at the game is definitely Rizz on the internet. And that's our institution's academic research goal for this quarter. That's my little monologue there. Let's look at some chat now. Rizz glasses. Thanks, Vishal. Side quests. This world is a simulation, but a simulation of what? With what purpose? AR and VR very likely makes this even more literal, like real. Right now, I know we're talking about this game in a very abstract way. Is there a future just a year or two down the line where it becomes literal? Possibly. I can't predict the future though. But yeah, I hope you guys found that interesting. Let's talk about some chats now. Bus. Okay. 2024. Yeah, this is going to be a good one. Even bigger, of course. I believe that. So, Ratchet says, or Ratchet maybe, I believe that for a personal brand, we need to find our niche in terms of community and then build content around what intrigues them. Absolutely, Rachit. You've touched upon something very important here. To read out one of my tweets are pretty much at this point my research material. But building a career on the internet, it's not enough to announce and lurk. You have to show, tell, and serve. Things be rhyming these days. But Rachit, to connect that to what you're saying, absolutely right. Personal brand is not just about posting stuff. I know a lot of people really get into, oh, what is my content calendar? What should I post and all of this? No, it's about doing good stuff, showing that you did it, talking about it, but overall doing it not from a place of I need something out of this, but doing it from a place of this is the vibe. Like I'm just vibing. You're doing it to serve. And when I say serve, that's a little bit more around the community part you're talking about, which is not everybody understands this kind of stuff, right? And I don't just mean design and all of these things, but in general, the internet has made it such that like now I can't even I can't even talk to people about shows they watch because they'll tell me a show that I've just never heard about. 10 years ago, everybody was still, they'll still say Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Seinfeld, and all this. Today, it'll just be a show, and I'll be like, oh, never heard of that. Anyway, point being, our experiences of the internet are very, very atomizing. Like the kinds of stuff we do online, the kinds of depths, the rabbit holes that we take are a core part of us. And it kind of separates us from everybody, right? So, community in some ways is the centralizing force where you're saying, hey, we're all vibing on these specific areas, specific topics. And I think that is super important. It is super important. Show, tell, serve. Absolutely. Mihir's question: what core human value does Riz answer to? Just transmitting patterns for trust or more than that? Very interesting question, Mihir. What core human value? I don't know if I can answer this in concrete terms just yet. But yes, you are right. It is about transmitting patterns of trust, which is what does trust come from? It comes from relatability and resonance with the other person. So this is a little bit off that. But beyond that, I think Riz answers to the need to build relationships. And our generation, COVID being just like this big example, we kind of just realized that building relationships, um, IRL, is less efficient and in some ways not even good as building relationships online. So, what core human value does Riz answer to? I would say it is probably relationship building. And when you say relationship building, for what? Relationship building to build connections, to build tribes. Tribes to do what? To take on challenges in the world, to make the world less scary, to make it more multiplayer. And what's that for? That's a question you should probably answer for yourself. But yeah, very nice question. I'm gonna Joy. Maybe you should screenshot some of these and let's add it to our fig jam. Like these are open areas we should definitely be thinking more about. UX कहाँ से सीखें? Piyush, very good question. We have a new series we're about to start on the channel called System Design and UX, which is, I'm sure you've seen system design videos. It's more of a dev topic. System design and whiteboarding. How are massive systems like Uber, WhatsApp designed from a technical perspective? We have something interesting for UX coming along. Personally, I believe the best way to learn UX is through examples, examples that you can deeply relate with. Most books, the examples are from 1 or 2 decades ago, which is why I don't really believe books are the best way to learn UX. Um, and so examples are a great way to learn, but the other great way to learn is direct experience. Direct experience of either building stuff. In fact, build stuff and fail. That's an even better experience because you will understand what about the experience or the user did expectation and reality not align with. But other than that, Piyush, keep an eye out. We have a lot more coming up. Um, on this whole reinvention wala vibe, I just realized I have UX in my username. However, I've never really thought of myself as a UX person. I always thought of myself as a product, design startups kind of person. But now I'm just like going deeper. Okay. Hmm. It's also about being authentic and not creating a perfect image of what we think people want. Very good point, Shashwat, because, and I do agree with this, because I do feel thinking about personal brand from this top down perspective, which is let me define who I am and then let me make stuff around that, is very limiting because you are not the same person as time passes, right? You're a very different person a week later. Difference might be, delta might be small or big, but you're a very different person a month from now, a year from now, right? So crafting this personal brand from a top down perspective is limiting because then it's like, hey, I'm not the same person anymore. And then you want to stop doing it because you're like, that past version of my this thing makes me feel cringe or whatever. So I definitely do believe this is a more bottom up process where you are It is about being authentic. A perfect image, it's a very top down concept. Let's find what it is. That's a very exploratory way of doing it for the vibes. How does Cadet, some really good news for you. We do have a lot more videos on this exact topic coming out. Sometime, I would say, end of this month or next month. We do have one video on this. This is by Rachit on the channel. It's about how he made this move to Dubai. We have another similar video coming out, which is about one of our 10K designers members. How did they move abroad for their masters, right? So we're exploring a few different possible paths. I want to make one as well about my move to Copenhagen, like my experiences and observations of design. So to give some context, Jenil, my co-host, we teach every single 10K designer session together, is based in the US, right? So deep US experience at big corporations. Me, I've been in Europe for about 3 years, and while I don't work here, I have figured out and have gotten a lot of insights into how European startups operate. Like, what do they have? What do they not have? Let's say compared to India. And of course, India, that's where my core experience was. So let me just say we have a lot more coming out. It is a very difficult thing to do, but my immediate advice to you would be you just need one to pay off, right? So even if you have to go to this uncomfortable thing where you're like 100 applications or see, I won't say spam applications. Do not spam applications. That shit does not work. You have to be very careful, thoughtful about your applications. Don't spam. But even if, like, within a period of 2 years, if even if you've applied to 100 places, 200 places, it's not a big deal because you just kind of need one to work out. And just make sure you're also progressing and building your skill along the way. But more practical paths, we do have a lot of design journeys around this coming up soon. Global immersion. Yeah, global immersion, absolutely. We have a bunch of new series on the way. So definitely this is very reinvention vibes, this stream. Hamdan says, I experienced this recently. This, I think, talking about authenticity and posting about yourself, posting stories on the internet. I got a couple of gigs after posting my project online. It's possible. Yeah, definitely. And I would definitely suggest checking out Hamdan's LinkedIn. That would probably have more information if anybody's interested in this. Danja says how to tone down the content creator to give space to the designer in my online persona. Um, Good question. And the difficulty in this question is defining yourself, right? I've had multiple times, every couple of years, this kind of crisis of identity, which is like, can I still call myself a designer? Am I more of a founder? We wrote Pajama Profit, and I'm like, do I have to start calling myself a writer now, like an author? And then, some people I'm like, oh, I'm a YouTuber or something. Like, point being, the more you try to define, the more it's always changing, right? It's in a state of flux. So it's okay that you're multiple things, but specifically for this, I would say, you know, given that you are still getting into design and still figuring out a lot of your core skills, I would say it's okay if you practice and work on a lot of your design stuff in private. And then the content creator part can just be around the meta of it. Like, it's the process of you doing the learning and everything. Again, guys, I will say it's not easy. It's not easy doing your job, doing your main stuff, and then also see, I don't like calling it content creator because I don't think it's a separate thing. I think in the same way that we don't say, like, in the same way that we all speak, we all write, doesn't mean we have to call ourselves speakers and writers. I think content creation is just one of those things where it's not really content that you're creating, it's stories, right? It's your voice on the internet, right? So definitely, I think those are some mindsets worth thinking about. We're going to wrap up in another 5 minutes. I don't want to keep this above an hour. But yeah, let's talk about it. Einstein says, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think my main thing I will say here is for folks who are still beginners, you don't really have to put that pressure on yourself saying, I don't know it. Like, I don't know it and I don't want to say the wrong thing and come off looking like an idiot, right? It's about the learning. When you post something, that's a interaction you're having in on the internet world with a broader community, right? So every post you make is a experiment to see what happens, right? And in some ways that is your core as a designer. You do something and then you see what happens and whether that thing that happened significantly shifts the status quo, and then you kind of do it again, and that's your feedback loops. So yeah, don't worry so much about correctness. It's about vibing, right? Figure out how you can vibe on the internet in a way that feels authentic to you. Sachin says, still grappling with the idea of Rizz. What's the elevator pitch? Elevator pitch, check it out. Check out the, I don't know where it is on the UI, but check out this pinned fig jam. That's going to give you everything you need to know. Of course, down the line, there's probably going to be a much better internet Rizz manifesto that makes it totally clear. But given that it's work in progress, I think you will have to do a bit of the piecing pieces uh, together. All right, folks. All right. So you become the filter to the content and culture you consume. Hmm. Agree. Agree. Cool, folks. So what we're going to do now is real quick. I want to just let you all know again. The fig jam is in the pinned comments for this video. Check it out. I would love I would love to give some of you edit access to this file. Right now, it's view access that you're seeing. I would love to give you edit access. However, I cannot do that for everyone. So if you have something to add to this, whether it's some resources, whether it's something else you read on the internet and you're like, hey, that kind of, it kind of vibes with this thing Abhinav has been talking about, drop some comments. And if I like that, if I like some of the resources and I'm like, hey, let me give you edit access, I'll do that. Already seeing some comments here. Amazing. Any questions that you might have, folks? Any you're thinking more about how does this apply to me? Does it apply to me? How much does it apply to me? Great questions, right? Great questions to figure out, but we can probably do that together. So drop a comment. Let's keep this participatory. um, it's definitely a work in progress. And with that, thank you all for joining. This has been a really fun stream. Keep designing, keep driving towards your outcomes. Keep, you know, you face resistance, drive around it, but keep driving towards your outcome. Work in progress is a way of life. Work in progress is not a bug, it's a feature. It's good to be a work in progress. The pressure of being polished might be what's actually preventing you from making progress. See you soon, somewhere else on the internet, and have a great evening and weekend ahead. Bye bye.